Hello, everyone. I'm Brian Addison. I am a columnist in Post, and I am start from the beginning. Hello, everyone. I am Brian Addison. I am a columnist and editor with the Long Beach Post. I am both honored and privileged to have the guests that we have here. We have Allan Pullman, principal with Studio 111 Architecture from here in Long Beach. And we are here to talk about public space in the post-COVID world. It's going to be an interesting time as we both adjust to social anxieties that people may have about going out, along with trying to help small businesses gather the patronage they need in order to survive. Allan, thank you again for being on here today. I kind of want to begin at a kind of lower level. I think there's this general idea amongst the public that architecture firms are these kind of like powerful entities that create these monolithic structures, and they really don't have anything to do with the day-to-day space that a lot of citizens experience. How do you counter that?
Thanks, first of all, for having me. Happy lunchtime. I don't think that perception is entirely wrong, because architects are known for designing buildings, and in today's world, bigger the better in some circles. Studio 111, the firm that I founded, was a little bit different in that we really were interested in cities, not just the buildings. We were interested in the spaces between the buildings and all the other parts that make up the city, including the public spaces, the streets, sidewalks, and how people move around the city. So for us, I think there's been a dialogue about what makes cities work for people, what makes them livable. And it's not just the buildings. And so we focused a lot on streets and sidewalks. We were the firm that kind of brought parklets, the idea of parklets, to Southern California, that Long Beach was really very eager to experiment with. So it's really about us thinking about cities beyond just buildings and all the other parts of the city that are really important. And I think that's a dialogue we started with 20 years ago, but it's really now a dialogue that architects are having and trying to really relate to the everyday parts of the city that people experience.
Well, and I think that kind of stimulates the creativity of architects too, when they have to kind of skip outside the usual boundaries of what they're used to design wise, in order to relate to the community that they're within. And I think that the role of firms, a lot of people don't even know that firms do public bids all the time, and that they're kind of essential in the way that we experience our space. You, for example, after your for the folks out there that don't know, Studio 111 just a few weeks ago did a mock pop-up of a temporary space in front of Romeo Chocolates and the Pie Bar in downtown Long Beach. And it was one of many things that kind of pushed the city for an open streets initiative that will allow public space to be used in these kind of extracurricular manners. You are officially going to design the form space that will be in front of Romeo Chocolate and Pie Bar, right?
Yeah, we've kind of come up with a layout, and we worked with DLBA, Downtown Bid, on that. And we submitted it to the city, and it's going to be one of the demonstration projects of this Open Streets initiative. It's going to happen today, tomorrow. It's going to be being put together very quickly. And that demonstration project, I think, lent itself to really being one of the first pilots of this Open Street initiative.
Can you describe to people what the space will actually look like so they can have a concept?
It's fairly simple. There are four. So we're talking about a section of Pine Avenue where there's a series of restaurants, everything from Plant Junkie and Pie Bar to Romeo's Chocolate and several others. And there are 4 parking spaces in front. This is going to reposition those parking spaces for outdoor dining with distancing so that people can sit there, have some space in between tables. It's going to allow these restaurants to be able to spill out into that space and have as many customers as they could fit inside, but have them outside. And we know being outside is going to feel more comfortable for customers, probably safer in terms of transmission. There's a lot of studies of that. So it's really going to be like an outdoor dining area, but we're repositioning parking spaces to make it happen.
I'm on two sides of a coin. I believe that there is this deep want for people to go out and be out again, socialize. And then on the flip side, I think there's a really deep sense of anxiety about being around others, sometimes people handling their food, whether those anxieties are warranted or not. How can space be manipulated to help both conquer the want of wanting to go outside, but diminish the social anxiety that comes with that?
I think you're right about that. There is a lot of anxiety, and yet there is also that desire. So I think this whole program, I view it as a big experiment. And that's what's really great about doing it very quickly, very cost effectively, very efficiently, because we can try things out. I think that there are going to be a number of things that are going to make it successful or not. One is communication, signage, and just, whoops, sorry about that. Technology. Okay, back. I think there are a couple of things that we're going to try to institute, like signage that talks about keeping your distance between people, signage about cleaning up after yourself. And then there's going to be a reliance on the businesses to make sure that tables are clean, that they're being well managed. I think what's great about the program is that it will be a ongoing experiment. We started with a one-day demonstration just to visualize it. Now it'll be, how does it really work? Are people feeling comfortable coming back out? I think we're going to have to test it and see. Every indication is that some people will feel comfortable coming back out, and some people won't, and it'll be a mixture. But one thing we do know is people attract people. So once people start using it, it may lead to the normalization again of being able to dine out, especially with some distancing between diners and some space that's created by this program.
When you talk about this testing period, are you guys going to be actively interviewing people? Are you going to be talking to the restaurant to see if they're gauging how people are responding? Like, how are you going to test the success and or failure of any given tactic?
I think every time that we do an intervention, and we do a lot of these intervention projects, whether it's for a day or a week, we work all over Southern California in both, urban context, even rural context, for making changes, and then testing and then gauging the reaction. I think that's really important. It's part of the social space life studies to really get some feedback, both from the businesses and from the community, neighbors, as well as people that are using it. So we're going to do it not maybe scientifically, but we're definitely going to be interviewing people, doing some space life studies to see how it's being utilized, and then talking to the businesses too, so that we could get information. That's what's great about an experiment, Brian. You can try it out, you see what works, what doesn't work, you can adjust as you go. And I think that's really one of the keys of this.
I fully agree with you. And I think this perfectly segues into one of the larger concerns I've heard from people, is that some fear that this initiative will focus only on rich neighborhoods, also tend to be a little bit more affluent. I'm talking Belmont Shore, Naples, Alamitos Beach, downtown. How can we assure that equity is played out in this, so that even neighborhoods that might not be either culinary rich or even affluent can also see the benefits of open streets provided to them?
I think that's a really important question. And what we know is that the neighborhoods that have been able to mobilize and request this program have been neighborhoods that have either a business improvement district or other kind of merchant association, so people can get together. And those are the neighborhoods and the districts that have more resources than so many others in our city. So we've been thinking about outreaching, to other parts of the city, specifically North Long Beach, West Long Beach, and Mid City, and trying to find out ways that we can even help them mobilize and apply, and also for free do some design services so they can get that application into Public Works to either do a parklet on the street or reposition some parking spaces in a shopping center parking lot. It doesn't necessarily have to be a main street. A lot of the city doesn't have main streets. I think it's really important that we see this is where Long Beach could really excel, making sure that there's an equitable distribution of some of these resources and some of this experimentation to all the communities in the city.
Well, yeah, I mean, when I was speaking with Mike Beck, he heads the city's public works department. It's kind of overseeing this open streets initiative. We wrote about it this morning and we published a story. What I was really surprised at was the city wants this to be at a zero cost to the businesses in the neighborhoods, and the city wants its liability for these spaces. I find that very admirable. At the same time, I'm kind of with you that if you don't have someone actively advocating, though, will these spaces reach these marginalized neighborhoods that we're talking about? It seems like Studio 111 wants to take an initiative to advocate for people on their behalf.
We want to assist because businesses are struggling just to stay afloat right now, and they don't have a lot of time to draw up a plan and to reach out to Public Works. I will give the city a lot of credit. So far, what we've seen, and this is an evolving policy, but so far what they've seen is it is fairly easy to apply. You just send in some sort of sketchy plan. The city will then meet with the businesses and assess the situation. So there's definitely, the city is doing its part, but still, I think businesses and districts will need some support to really get this going. And we want to be able to help, and we're not the only ones, but I think that there's definitely a desire to see this help businesses throughout the city and not just in some of the wealthier business districts.
Now, the city is emphasized very so that this is temporary, that these projects are for the now. It's to help businesses for a certain period while we learn to adjust to this post-COVID world. But do you think there's a possibility that if public opinion, shifts, like let's just say a space in central Long Beach is built temporarily, but the neighborhood loves it so much, would there be a way for them to advocate to make that permanent? Do you think that's a possibility? Do you think it will shift neighborhood perspectives in that kind of manner?
I'm hoping it does. I'm hoping that people will see the benefits and will apply for permanent changes. But it is, in our opinion, always the best way to actually do things on a temporary, let's see how it works basis. And that way, the stress is a lot lower. We could see if it works or not. Permanent solutions also are more expensive. They have a different kind of permitting process. So this is actually a way of doing something quick, testing it in real time. And then if it works, maybe there could be a program then, and there will be a program to actually make it permanent. But the main thing is that this crisis has given everyone from public works and traffic to business districts the ability to think outside the box. Whereas before it was very kind of rigid thinking about what could work and where it could work. Now there's a more open mind. Let's try things out. I think that's healthy. Not everything will work. I guarantee that some of these things will go up and we'll find that they're not utilized or they cause problems we didn't anticipate. But I think this is a chance to do that experimentation now while there is still a lot of parking spaces available because people aren't driving as much. Traffic is lower as people work from home or unfortunately don't work at all. So these are the opportunities to try things out.
For those who may not have either been in a parklet or been in an open streets project, could you perhaps assure them how these spaces are safe for them? I know people saw your pop-up and mistakenly thought it was semi-permanent when you were only trying to show an example. How are these spaces be safe for people to hang out in and not be concerned about a car ramming.
Well, first of all, we're going to be doing this in areas where traffic is 30 miles or less. That's part of the program. It won't go, let's say, on stretches of PCH, in East Long Beach, for instance. So there is the location putting in place where it's going to generally have slower traffic. The parklets are going to be designed, the temporary ones, with barricades. I believe we'll be using water-filled barricades that are traffic resistant. So a car going 3 miles an hour won't smash into anyone that's sitting there. There'll also be reflective paint and bright colors to alert drivers that there's something there. It's a safe space. Reality is cars park along the street all the time, and the incidents of being smashed or sideswiped are fairly minor. And a parklet has even more barriers against it than a car. So I think that generally speaking, parklets, we've had them for many years now. They've generally been safe. And I think the temporary ones will be as safe as the permanent ones. The way they're designed is really with safety in mind.
Just a kind of hypothetical question. You talked about these other places that you'd see trying to assist. Are there any spots of the city that you would feel would particularly benefit from these public space interventions?
I can think of some of our major streets like Anaheim Street that run east-west through many, many parts of the city and all through that mid-city area. We've been looking at potentially, certainly North Long Beach as well. We haven't really analyzed all the different locations that make sense, but we're going to start doing some outreach onto that to see where we can assist and where there's a need or a desire to try some of this out.
Well, I think I've asked all the questions that I can. We got one from Twitter. I admittedly, maybe perhaps you can figure out how to decode. Says, how do pilots address the issue of biodiversity? And I don't know if they meant biodiversity as in plant life or biodiversity as in human life. But do you think you can entangle that?
Biodiversity is a complicated question. I'm not sure parklets are really meant to address biodiversity. I mean, certainly they bring a little bit of traffic calming, which is good. They bring a little bit of plant life to the street, which has a great effect on street life. I'm not sure that if I was going to address biodiversity, I'm not sure I would do it through a parklet. So I'm not sure that's the right tool to use to address that particular issue. It's an interesting question, maybe one for some future research.
So you said that you're taking on the space in front of Romeo Chocolates or Pie Bar possibly today or tomorrow at the latest.
Yeah, so we're working with Public Works. They are delivering the barricades, I believe today. It's an evolving, as you know, they've just announced the ability to open up restaurants very shortly. So they would like to see some of this pop up rather quickly. We know that the city has been very eager to get something going for these restaurants on that location this weekend. So I would say sometime this weekend, don't know the exact time, you'll see the beginnings or actually the final installation of that Open Streets Parklet in that area.
And for people in other parts of the city that aren't in downtown, the city will also be taking on the Owlery space and that will be used by EJ Malloy's and Duchess Brew House. So that will be another example of this Open Streets initiative that you'll be able to look at. And they will also be taking on the promenade in downtown as well, in between Broadway and Third, which isn't a street closure because it's already close to traffic, but we'll showcase more of how restaurants can extend their footprint in spaces that already exist. So make sure to check those out this weekend. Allan, I deeply appreciate you for joining me today. The work that architecture firms do is very important and it extends way beyond just building buildings. And I thank you for everything you've done for the community. For those that are listening, our next live chat will be Monday 1 with a topic to be announced. I thank you again for your time, Alan, and I thank the listeners for listening.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.